Wow. You know, I've been thinking of putting together some kind of an intro with music and maybe some landscape so that can build into a video a little slower. But I gotta say, when you come out here and you see this landscape like this beautiful scenery, what could I do that would improve upon it? I don't know. I don't think I can. So I think for a while I'm just gonna leave it the way it is right now. So anyhow, welcome. My name is Lee. It's the Rocky Mountain View. And I come out here today to read you a couple more emails. So I'm gonna do things a little bit differently today. The last couple times I did a video, I tried using my teleprompter. I have a little teleprompter that I use at home when I'm making my amazing story videos or my political commentary videos. But I don't think that would do this justice. And I was having such a difficult time reading it, and to be honest with you, I don't want this to be scripted. This is something that I enjoy doing. Don't get me wrong, I like making the other videos that I make as well, but the political ones, you got to be a little negative, and I'm not the kind of person that wants to get up in the morning and look for something that I want to complain about, and then having to write a script and put something together. The amazing stories ones, it's exactly that. They're just amazing stories of things that people have done and maybe didn't get credit for, or that we don't know about, or just parts of their lives that are extremely interesting. At least I find extremely interesting. So like I say, today I wanted to do this unscripted, read a couple of emails. I've received quite a few in the last little bit, but I got to be honest with you, I'm looking for more. If you have an experience that you would like to share, where faith has possibly helped you through a tough time, overcome some tough times, or prayer obviously has helped you through some tough times, and you'd like to affirm that, because basically that's what you're doing. When I do these videos and I read these emails, it's nice because it gives all of us a feeling of, it helps us build up our faith. Sharing, it helps build our faith. There's no other way to say it. It bolsters our faith. I've also found over the years that just sharing your story, you're not only just affirming it to yourself that it took place, but you're also affirming the Lord's presence and the Lord's love and what He's done for you. So please, if you have an experience, you don't have to include your name if you don't like. If you don't want me to say your name, that's fine. But send me an email. It doesn't have to be long. It could be 2 minutes long, could be 20 minutes long. I don't particularly care. It's the experience and it's the sharing of faith that I'm looking for more than anything. So please feel free to do that. Also, just before I start here, I want to just adjust my focus to make sure that I get this right. I'm sure I did, but you never know. This would be the time that I wouldn't. So there we go. So I'm going to get to my first email. Now this email was sent to me about a week ago. It was one of the first ones I received, about the fourth one, I believe. Anyhow, let's get started. Hi, Lee. My name is Jerry. That is G-E-R-I. I watched your video, The Voice of God, and right away I wanted to write to you and thank you for sharing your experience, and also to share with you mine. I come from a broken home and had a fairly dysfunctional childhood. You see, my father was seldom around, and when he was, it was always very stressful. It seemed like though we hardly knew him, whenever he was home, we were always supposed to know exactly how to act and behave around him. I remember feeling like I was constantly having to walk around on eggshells. My parents ended up divorcing when I was 7, and my father rarely sent money home. So my mother always had to find various ways to provide for me, my older sister and younger brother. Unfortunately though, in our small town, work was hard to come by. So we never had much, but Mom did the best she could. Then, during one really bad period, she sent my sister and me to live with relatives for just a while, until she was able to get back on her feet. But unfortunately, we were never together as a family again after that. Now I gotta ask you a favor. Keep an eye on what's going behind me here. There hasn't been any reports of bears yet this year, but the weather's starting to warm up. It's probably about -3 right now, but the weather's starting to warm up, and if you see something, I know you can't really help me, but you can at least feel bad for me. We were never together as a family again after that. At one time or another, over the next few years, I ended up living with every relative we had, and sometimes even non-relatives. I found out very early that learning and obeying the rules of the new house I was living in made things a lot easier for me, though I still had a hard time trusting anyone and didn't make friends easily. So, by the time I was in my teens, I felt unloved, abandoned, lonely, and just very unsure of myself. God had a plan for me though. When I was 13, I lived in a Christian home, where church attendance was a big part of life, and one Sunday while listening to a sermon, God showed me that His love for me was unconditional. That very day, I began a personal relationship with Jesus, which has ended up being far greater than all the other relationships that have been missing throughout my life. And isn't that the truth? He'll never leave you. Meanwhile, periodically, my father still floated back in and out of our lives, as every once in a while, if he happened to be in the town where I lived, he would call. Then years later, after I married and was the mother of 2 toddlers, he showed up one morning at my door, unemployed and needing a place to stay. He lived with us for about 3 months, and then one day, just like when he first showed up, he didn't come home again. The next time he dropped by, I had 5 children, and this time he stayed for several months, which gave me and my children a much better chance to get to know him. The last time Dad came to visit, I was working as a nurse, and he was terminally ill and needed someone to take care of him. He told me that though he'd lived his life exactly as he wanted to, it had cost him everything he ever held dear. He said, "Don't get me wrong, I'm not afraid to die, but looking back, I wouldn't wish my life upon anyone." When I told him I couldn't bear thinking that someday I would be in heaven and he might not be there, he said not to worry, that he'd made peace with the Lord a long time ago. After my father passed away, I was distraught. I had no evidence that he'd ever had a relationship with Jesus, and whenever I did think of him, I always saw him as he was just before he died, helpless, sick, and struggling to breathe. I just couldn't seem to shake my sadness. Exactly 1 year later, on the anniversary of his death, as I was leading the Sunday school class that I taught, I started to think about him. I prayed, "Oh Lord, I'm so sad thinking about my father. I wish there was some way you could let me know that he is with you." Later, after class, I began to leaf through the new lesson guides we just received, not really paying any attention, when suddenly something on one of the pages caught my eye. But it had passed by so quickly, I couldn't tell what it had been. I started turning the pages back slowly, one by one, hoping to come across it again, looking for anything. Suddenly, on one of the pages, I found myself staring at a half-page picture of my father. Ooh. I can't begin to tell you how amazing it felt and how thankful I was to Jesus for answering my prayer. And to this day, I have no idea how his picture made it into one of the programs. Thank you for letting me send to you my story. My hope is that if you read it, that maybe it will help someone who is listening. God is real, and his love for us is unconditional. Take care, and may God bless you in your new endeavor. Jerry. Well, thank you very much, Jerry, for your kind words. They're certainly appreciated. You know, I can't imagine how awesome and reaffirming it must have been for you to find your father's picture in that booklet, completely unexpected like that. I receive letters where people are looking for signs, looking for answers in their life, and oftentimes they'll receive a sign, but that's kind of beyond a sign. That is such a definite answer to your prayer, and I'm very thankful and very glad that was able to happen for you. So, a little bit about where I'm at here today. I should tell you, I'm just off the Kananaskis Trail, which runs from Canmore about 170 kilometers that way, and Longview, which runs maybe 45 kilometers that way. It's a beautiful road. I mean, the scenery along here, I've traveled quite a bit in my life, and the scenery along here is just as good or better than anything I've ever seen. It's a little chilly though, a little windy. I hope my microphone isn't picking that up, but I wanted to be able to tell you anyhow exactly where I was before I forgot about it. Like I say, I'm probably gonna have to do a little bit of editing because I'm freewheeling it here. So I'm gonna do my other. I have another email that I wanted to read to you. It's one that I think it's my second one that I received. It was from a gentleman in the United States who I've actually talked to quite a few times since he sent me that. Since he sent me his email, and it's phenomenal. So here goes. Hello, Lee. My name is Jerry Mesa, and I am responding to your request from the video, The Voice of God. Now, like I say, Jerry and I emailed each other back and forth a couple times, and he shared a lot of experiences and a lot of his insights with me. And to be quite frank with you, I found him to be a very wise man and someone that I would enjoy calling a friend, and probably will continue to hear from him, I hope. Now back to Jerry's email. Jerry writes, my story is very unique. I was a young soldier in the 82nd Airborne in 1983 when I said a prayer alone in my barracks room. What brought me to this point is a long story. To provide a brief background, I had been baptized as a young child of my own free will, but as I grew up, I had developed the belief that science would eventually eradicate God, in the same way that maturity eradicates Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, and the Tooth Fairy. Thing is, I have not always been right on everything, and I was not so sure that I wanted to risk missing out on heaven, if such a thing existed. Well, Jerry, that's very wise of you. Now, based on what I'd recently been through that brought me to this point, it was apparent to me that Satan was real. By contrast, then so too must God be real. So I decided to give God the benefit of the doubt. You know, I find it so interesting that Jerry said this because I agree 100% with him. Now, obviously, I have never been in the Army, and I haven't witnessed, I haven't went through maybe some of the things that Jerry has. But one of the things I've always believed is that for there to be so much evil in the world, and we know this is true, we hear it and see it every day on TV and the news and what have you, but for there to be so much evil in the world, it only makes sense that there has to be a God, there has to be Jesus, because to me it's I'm not going to say it's science, but it's just like science. Science actually proves it. Science says that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. And don't get me wrong, I don't think that God is equal to Satan. I believe he's much more powerful. But for Satan to exist and for all that evil to exist, there has to be. Goodness wins. Goodness wins every time. It may not seem like it sometimes, and it may take some time, but goodness wins every time. And so to me, it's just always made sense that there has to be a God. So anyhow, I'm not doing a little bit of rambling here. It's just kind of a no-brainer to me. It's just the way I've always just felt that way. So getting back to Jerry's story, when I prayed to a living God who sees me, who hears me, who knew me. When I said this prayer, I gave God the attribute of existence. Here was my prayer. Lord, I want to believe in you, but if you exist, you know me. You created me. You gave me the mind of a scientist. You know that I can't go on blind faith. I need to know for certain that my faith is not misplaced. I need proof. I have to know. I'm sorry, but that's what it's going to take for me. Amen. Jerry, you're very much like me in a lot of ways. Well, I got my proof more than once, but after the first few times, I figured there had to be a logical explanation for what I'd experienced. And isn't that often what we do? We receive a reply, and then we look for another way to explain the reply away. You see, I needed to witness what could not be explained. I needed to see a sea part, a blind man see, a lame man walk, or a dead man rise, or some sort of similar experience as described in the Bible as a genuine miracle. Finally, in 1999, I got such proof, right after coming to the realization that God is love. I came out of this moment of epiphany with a clarity of reality, understanding, and joy beyond what I can describe when I heard God's voice. Believe in me, and I will bless you. Well, that in itself is a massive blessing right there. I've had a similar experience, but not exactly the same. I could not have been more convinced if I had witnessed all the signs I indicated would be required, combined. Now, explaining what happened is quite a story, but the issue is there were no witnesses. One would simply have to take my word for it in faith. Afterward, I read the Bible, and have done so cover to cover a number of times, without the filter of doubt. I understand much of what is written in His Word, and I see exactly what is happening in the world. We live in the days where the stage is being set for the one world government. And isn't that the truth? To establish itself where the devil's emissary will eventually arise. I believe that time will be around 2060, as do many biblical scholars, beginning with Sir Isaac Newton. And that's an amazing story. If you get a chance to check into what Sir Isaac Newton did, trying to disprove or prove the existence of God, you'll be very surprised. Here is a man who was considered one of the most intelligent persons who ever lived, and his conclusion was that there is a God. And there's other scientists that are also, we give great credence to their intelligence, that have come to a similar or the same conclusion. But Satan is redoubling his efforts to deceive mankind because he is desperate, knowing his days are numbered. I have much to share, as since that time, God has answered my prayers in the most awesome ways. God is real. To hear His voice and feel the gift of the Holy Spirit, a gift that brings a joy far greater than the highest paying winning lottery ticket in history, and that gift is free. It certainly is. All it takes is complete surrender. Let go of control and trust in God to fill the void, and He will, with the Spirit of His Son, Jesus Christ. There must be a reason for what God has done in my life. I believe that reason will reveal itself soon. Well, Jerry, as I said, I can't agree with you more. I too recognize that we're in the middle of a battle between good and evil. Certainly more so now than at any other time in my life. And during this past year, after the events of the pandemic and what went on in 2020, I believe that more and more people are beginning to look for answers. They're scared. Many people have lost their jobs. They've lost loved ones. And I believe more and more people have either come back to Jesus after maybe wandering away, or have come to Him for the first time in their lives. At this time, I got my bear spray, just in case. So if you did see something, just point at my right pocket. At this time, I kind of like to tell you a little bit of the reasoning why I began this video series. As I mentioned, I had done political ones, and I also did the amazing stories ones. And I enjoyed doing the amazing story ones a great deal. The political ones, not so much, because like I say, you got to be negative, and the world's tough enough without having to go look for things to be angry about, frustrated about. So what happened to me really is when they closed the churches during the pandemic. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not. I'll share my opinion, but I'm not saying that I'm completely right, or that that my opinion is the correct one. I understand that we had to distance, and I understand the fear at first, the tremendous amount of fear, because nobody knew what was going on. But as time passed, it just struck me as very odd that we were allowed to go into Walmart, the liquor store, the beer store. Heck, in Calgary, you could go in and buy marijuana if you wanted to. And you could certainly go to a store and buy cigarettes. But you weren't allowed to come together in fellowship with members of your community and share your faith, worship. And I found that very odd. I found it extremely odd. And I also found it very troubling, because I believe that during the time of the pandemic and during this time right now is when we need to come together most. And so one day I had a shower. I tend to do a lot of my heavy thinking in the shower. And while I was in the shower, I started thinking about the churches being closed and all the sadness and tough times that people are going through right now, and how frustrated many of them are, and how scared many of them are. And I started thinking, geez, if there was a way that I could, share with people faith, because I believe that sharing our faith with each other is one of the strongest gifts we can give each other. And I thought, if we could start sharing our faith with each other, maybe in a different format, and then this idea came to me, that why not ask people to send in emails and then read them? Because I know that over the course of my life, I've drawn tremendous amounts of strength from reading stories about, it doesn't have to be a miracle, but about miracles and prayers that were answered. And I've just always found it a tremendous source of strength. And I know that others will too. And I also know, and I know I said this earlier, but when you affirm an experience that you had, you're not only affirming it to yourself, you're also giving the glory to Christ. And that is, we need to do that. Anyhow, I think that's going to be the end of the emails today. I am probably going to hang around a little bit, maybe do a little bit of sightseeing, look for some new areas, when I might want to come back out here again. I'm going to try to put one of these out 5 times a week. I'm thinking probably like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and a Saturday or Sunday. I'm not really sure yet, but they will be up, and you will come to understand what days are going to come out, and I'll let you know once I make that final decision. But before I go, I want to do a little pan here, just to show you exactly where I'm at, and I'd like to thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak with you today and to be with you. Thank you. So if someone tells you that this area isn't beautiful, let me give you a little shot. And I'm not even in the heart of the Rockies yet. This road that's next to me here, or near me, is actually closed for the next, until June 15th. And then after June 15th, they open it back up again. And they do that for the wildlife, because most of the wildlife wants to feed on the vegetation that's on the east side of the highway, west side of the highway, because the sun catches it, and it's mostly for the elk. But anyhow, hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you very much for coming and seeing us, and take care.